Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem, amma ba'd. We've been discussing the theory of contract, and we started talking about the pillars, the definition first, and then the pillars, the second. We talked about three pillars. So the first one is the expression, the second one is the parties, buyer and seller, and then the last one is the object and subject matter. So last week we talked about the expression. So we talked about the condition of expression, clarity, conformity, continuity. So this week we are moving into the second pillar. All right. So this second pillar is actually, of course, the sort of a big topic in this theory of contract, because the second pillar has many inner dimensions, meaning it has many aspects to talk about. Because when we are talking about the expression, then we clearly stated that, okay, this is the way you can do. Sometimes verbally you can do, action also you can do, even in sign language. So it's very clear that somehow you need to show that you are consent with the transaction, whether you are a buyer or whether you are a seller, whether you are accepting the transaction, the accepting it, or you are offering it, whether you are offerer or acceptor. So now when we are talking about the parties, so this is the outline for the parties. So I want you to carefully understand this, so that you won't so that you don't go away out of the topic. So when we are talking about the parties to a contract, of course it is the acceptor and the offerer, or in other words it is seller and buyer. So now here we are talking about the real people, right? Because even in pillar number 3, we are not going to talk about the party, but we are going, in pillar number 3, we are going to talk about the subject matter, the product that you are selling, the property that you are dealing with. That is what number 3. So there are some discussion over this product, but the number 2 has many things to talk about. That's because it's related to a human being. So when it comes to human being, there are so many specification, what kind of quality he should have. Let's say if someone's selling, what are the qualities that you can have? So what kind of people are allowed to sell? What kind of people are not allowed to sell? So it's like when Sharia prohibits a minor to sell something, it's because the Sharia wants to protect the interests of the minor. When Sharia asking stopping anyone to buy from a lunatic or to buy from someone who drink alcohol, that's because the Sharia wants to protect the interest. Right, so because the Sharia doesn't want any injustice to happen, that's why the Sharia has so many rules and regulations to follow. So for that reason, we are going to learn that who are able to sell, who are not able to sell. It's not simply Sharia is bringing the restriction because Sharia doesn't want. Sharia wants to make it tough. We might be thinking it is very difficult to do selling and buying in Sharia. It's not that. The Sharia as a protector, it has to work for the benefit of the people. At the same time, Sharia also will be there if there is any harm to the people. Sharia will stop such transactions if there is any harm to the people. When we talk about the people, even one person, right? The Sharia says if someone is sleepy at the counter and he is there, so better for you not to, you should not go and deal with him because he's a sleepy, so he might be giving you something later, he might regret. The amount he's supposed to collect, 200, but he collected only 20 ringgit. So which means that we might say it is the fault of the seller. So why should I be blamed? Everyone can ask this question, but that question is invalid when it comes to justice. If someone is ready to sell, you go on the road and then suddenly someone is having iPhone and he says, let me give you this iPhone for 500. So your eyes comes out because you saw how it is possible, because this iPhone is the original iPhone, and this iPhone this iPhone, of course, it is selling there for 3,000, and someone suddenly wants to sell for 500. Of course, he's holding the phone, but not with the receipt, not with the box. He's just holding the phone, and then he is actually asking you, do you want to buy from me? It's the original phone, you can check, just for 500. So now at, um, at your side, at your stand, you think that, okay, this is something very good happening to me. You will say, Alhamdulillah, all praise to Allah. This is rizqi from Allah. This is a gift from Allah, and maybe I was very lucky. You will tell your friend, I was very lucky. I was able to get this iPhone for 300 for 500 ringgit. Everybody is buying that iPhone for 3,000, and you are getting it for 500 ringgit. So now Sharia prohibits you to buy that kind of phone. You know why? Because clearly it indicates that either the person who is selling to you, he is a lunatic, or he is a minor because he doesn't know the value of the phone, or maybe it was stolen. Most of the cases, I think the last one is true. Most of the cases, it is stolen. So, which means that you are helping a thief, you are helping someone who steal actually to buy the phone. So by buying from him, is that you are actually selling, you are actually helping. So later you have to face the consequences. They might find out who is holding the phone, and later you might not see the person who sold to you. He will be like in the wind, in the air, he will be out, and he will be lost. So the later the police or anyone can find and then can complain that you are the one who stolen the phone. See, that's why Sharia prohibits, if you know any product that actually was stolen, and that's the reason why they are selling it for free or selling it for low price, you should not buy, because someone is affecting, because it's been the phone is stolen from someone. So while someone is affecting, so while someone is very sad, Sharia doesn't allow someone to be very happy. Then it becomes gambling. Only in gambling both parties are not happy. In gambling, always one party is unhappy, sad. That's why transaction must be valid, and we need to know why actually uh, Sharia brings the rules and regulations. Is for the interest of us. Today I might be the buyer, tomorrow I might be the seller. So the similar consequences might happen to me. So it's like, today today I'm buying somebody's phone. The same thing may happen to me tomorrow. Tomorrow somebody is buying my phone. Somebody has stolen my phone and then selling to someone. Today, if I allow that kind of thing, most of the time they come and they tell this is the watch. This watch outside is 1,000 ringgit. So let me give you for 100 ringgit. You go to some park, people will approach you. Usually people will approach you and then they want to sell something. So you need to make sure that you have your phone, you can check exactly how much the price is going on. So you need to buy only the original set from the right source, not from the wrong market, what we call it the black market. This is all actually, when you are buying from black market, again, it caused a loss to the government. Sharia doesn't allow, never allow that. For example, smuggling, people getting the product from what we call it AP, or maybe they bring those products to the country without the government knowing. Because if the government knows, the government will apply taxes. So if they pay tax, then the price will be the market price, the market price. If they don't pay the tax, then only the price is cheaper than the market price. So we need to find out, because Sharia doesn't want any laws to have any government to have lost, right? So these are the things very important to understand. That's why we are talking about what kind of parties, what kind of seller and buyer, what are the qualities for the buyer and seller he or she should have. Then only we call it capacity. The qualification, we call it capacity. In Arabic, it is called ahliyah. All right. So this ahliyah, there are two types of ahliyah. There is one is ahliyah al-wujub, which means passive and receptive capacity. Then you have incomplete and complete, two divisions under this. So we are here talking about the entire people from the beginning, uh, from the birth, even before the birth, until you die. So before you birth, you are fetus, right? You are in the you are in your mother's womb. So starting from that stage until everybody die. So there are so many stages. In here um, we are actually classifying those stages under two category. The first one is passive receptive capacity, which is ahliya al-wujub. Then we are going to talk about the active or legal capacity, which is ahliya al-ada. All right. So this is what we are talking about, the stages of the human being, and then in what stage, what kind of transaction he can make, what kind of obligation he has, what kind of rights he can actually have. All right. If he cannot sell, who actually sell on his behalf? So these are the things what we are discussing in this two category. After that, we are going to talk about the obstacles to capacity or strength. So right now, even though you know that you are in which stage, most probably we are going to talk about the four stages. All these four stages um, has, if there is obstacles comes to that stages, those obstacles will prevent you to do any transaction. All right. So we are going to talk about the list of obstacles. For example, the alcohol, or maybe if someone is drinking alcohol, so what is the ruling, whether he can sell or he cannot sell. If someone is actually if someone is actually sufaha, so for example, if someone is selling a lot, I mean buying and selling a lot, means spending a lot. If someone is a bankrupt, if someone having mortal illness, he is about to die. If someone is actually lunatic, suddenly he lost his mind, the conscious. Someone is minor, someone. So these are the list of obstacles. So we are going to talk about one by one. So what kind of obstacles will prevent you from business, right? As I told you again, this is all when it comes to secular transactions, secular economics. So these are the things are not being discussed unless it will be discussed only in the legal matter, in the law, in the legal matter it will be discussed. But when it comes to, commonly speaking, the economic transactions in secular economics, they don't discuss a lot about it. That's because they said it is at your risk if you want to sell at your risk. But Sharia wants to protect. Sharia wants to protect the rights of everybody. It's not that only you. It is not only the seller, it is also the buyer. So both parties, they want to protect the interest. That's the reason why they have some obstacles. If there is any obstacles, it will prevent you from the transaction. Then let's say when you are not able to buy something or not able to sell something, but there is a need that you have to sell or you have to buy something. So what you should do? Then Sharia is introducing authorization, which means that whether your guardian can sell on your behalf. If you are minor, for example, you are minor and you need money for your education. So as a minor, you cannot go and sell your property, but your guardian will come on your behalf. He will sell your property and then take the money and then will spend for your education. This is actually happens when a minor has no parents. Sometimes the minor will become orphan, but he has properties. So the minor cannot. The minor means the boys. I mean the small boy, the small girl, right? Those are the things. Who is not major, we call them minor. Then, but sometimes you are not minor, but you are major at the same time. You also want someone to do on your behalf. We call it agency, a wakala, the agencies. So these are the things what actually, inshallah, today we are going to talk about it. Okay. The contracting parties are the parties who exercise the sigha of ijab and qabul. In order to conclude a valid contract, the contracting parties must have legal capacity, ahliyah. Right? They have the qualification to perform the contract. So what do I mean by ahliyah? The definition of ahliyah, it means capacity or competence. Technically, it has been defined by Muslim jurists as the eligibility of a person, to establish right for and obligation upon himself. So remember, we also discussed in the theory of theory of rights. We talked about what exactly right, what exactly obligation. So right means something that you receive, right? For example, there is a baby in the womb, there is a fetus in the womb, and then the father is passing away. So now the baby in the womb will receive the right of inheritance. The baby in the womb cannot do anything because it didn't come into. Same thing goes to the baby, the newborn baby until it become major. There is no obligation for the baby. No need to pay zakat. Baby is not going to pay something, but the baby will receive. If the grandfather passing away, the baby will receive the inheritance or the wasiyah. So these are the things what we call it, receiving the rights or establishing the right. Then we call it obligation. Obligation means something to give, something that upon you should do. That is what obligation. So technically, capacity means the eligibility of a person to establish a right for an obligation upon himself. A person may not have the requisite legal capacity to conclude a transaction, but he may still receive rights and obligations. A child or a lunatic person, for instance, cannot conclude contract, but are entitled to receive their share of inheritance and are obliged to pay for the necessities bought for them through their guardians. See, when you have a certain property that you owned, after you owning the property, definitely, there is a taxes. There are some payment with regard to the property. There are some maintenance with regard to the. So who will pay for the maintenance? Who will pay for the taxes? So the guardian will pay on your behalf because when someone is lunatic or child, he or she cannot handle the property. This is where the guardians will come and they will handle the property. Okay. Here we are going to talk about the types of capacity. As I told you, there are two types of capacity. The first one is Ahliya al-Wujub, receptive capacity, and then you have the Ahliya al-Ada, which is active capacity. So you have two types. The first one is receptive passive capacity. So the receptive passive capacity is something that, you know, most of the time it is receiving. That's why we call it receptive. It's not that most of the time it is going to be obligated. Most of the time the rights will be received, so it comes under receptive capacity. The other one is active capacity. Active capacity is something that actually uh, a big child or adult, you know, the one who actually can perform the transaction. So these are the thing what we call Ahliya. There is a receptive and then there is active, right?
So,
Yes, Leon.
so sorry to cut you off. May I ask regarding the just now sir say like for a child or lunatic person,
Mm.
they need to do something through their guardians. For that part, is it possible for sir to provide some example?
Yes, the examples are coming after this, yeah, one by one. All right.
Okay,
When
thank you.
we talk about receptive capacity, inshallah, the things will come, the examples and also more explanation will come. All right. Okay, let us talk about one by one. I told you there are two types of capacity, but we need to discuss what exactly I meant by receptive capacity. So let us discuss one by one. First one is Ahliya al-Wujub. This is what we call it, receptive passive capacity, right? It refers to the capacity of a person to receive rights and obligations. See, this is what he has to receive rights and obligation. It is possessed by all living human beings, humanity are alive. That, again, inside this Ahliya al-Wujub, you have two types of them. The first one is incomplete Ahliya al-Wujub. The second one is complete Ahliya al-Wujub. So to make it easier, I found this method to make it easier for you to understand. So I want you to imagine stages of life, stages of your life. Think about the beginning. The beginning, even it is not after the birth, even before the birth. The beginning is actually fetus. The fetus is the baby that in the mother's womb, right? That's because it is considered as a baby unless until the baby is born, right? So now the fetus here, I would say that is the first stage that we are going to discuss, will come under incomplete Ahliya al-Wujub. The reason we are saying incomplete because fetus is not complete yet until it was born. So I want you to remember on these stages of life. The first stage is fetus. The second stage is actually the child, the born, the newborn baby. The newborn baby will be the complete Ahliya al-Wujub. Then the third stage is actually something that a baby, a child, but it's a big child. The child is actually getting maturity. In Arabic, we call it Ashabi al-Mumayyiz. Ashabi al-Mumayyiz is the child that, for example, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. For example, the 10 years old boy can understand what is right, what is wrong. Most of the time, your parents, when you were 10 years old, most of the time your parents will give you money and ask you to go and buy something for the house. For example, they ask, okay, go take this money, buy 2 kilos of sugar, right? But they don't give that money to a newborn child or, you know, a child at 2, 3 years old because he doesn't know what money is. He might be losing the money or he might lose himself on the way to the school, on the way to the grocery shop. So here you need to understand there is a fetus and then there is a newborn child, the small one. Then stage number 3 is actually what we call Shabi al-Mumayyiz, or you can call distinguished child. The distinguished child is the child that who can understand what is wrong, what is right. Okay. Then the 4th stage is actually like all of us. The 4th stage is adult. So now in this Ahliya al-Wujub, yeah. So before I go in there, I'm just giving you these examples. This Ahliya al-Wujub, and then you have Ahliya al-Ada. Under Ahliya al-Wujub, you have incomplete and complete. Similarly, under Ahliya al-Ada, active capacity. Under active capacity, again, you have incomplete and complete. All right. So now let me start from here. Receptive, passive, capacity, you have incomplete. So the example for incomplete is what? Fetus. Again, the second one. Receptive, capacity, Ahliya al-Wujub, you have complete. The complete, what is the example for the complete? Anyone can tell me? What is
A
the example?
child.
Very good. The child, the newborn child, it will be complete. But still, it comes under what? Receptive, passive, capacity. All right. We will talk about one by one. Don't worry. I'm just giving you this so that you won't get lost. And then the other side, you have active capacity, right? Again, under the active capacity, you have incomplete. Again, you have complete. So incomplete, example for the incomplete is what? Shabi al-Mumayyiz, the distinguished child. Again, another one is what? Active capacity complete. So what is the example for the complete? All of us, adult. All right. Okay. You just remember all these examples, then you will understand one by one. So we talked about Ahliya al-Wujub. It refers to the capacity of a person to receive rights and obligations. Then you have incomplete and complete. So the incomplete one, we are going to discuss the incomplete first. Incomplete receptive capacity is a type of capacity that enables a person to receive only rights but not obligations. So like the example is actually fetus. Capacity is established to a fetus. Fetus is part of the mother as it does not have an independent personality. We don't know whether it's a boy or girl. We don't know what color it is, what is the weight. We don't know anything about it, but we know there is a life. There is a life in the womb of the mother. In this case, this fetus is entitled to certain essential beneficial rights. There are 4 rights granted. This is a legal matter. Yeah, there are 4 rights can be granted to the baby that inside the womb of the mother. A fetus has the right to attribute it to his parents. He is also entitled to receive his share of inheritance. This is what I told you. If the father passed away and the baby is in the mother's womb, so now there are children, like for example, 2 children already out, already alive, and then this fetus will be number 3. So when there is inheritance, they have to also count this fetus. You cannot say that, okay, when your father passed away, you were not a baby, you were a fetus. For that reason, you will not get your inheritance. Cannot say that, right? So that means he is also entitled to receive his share in a will, wasiyah. He is also entitled to receive his share in waqaf. If someone give endowment, he will be share. But a fetus is entitled to these rights only when it is born alive, because we don't know yet. 99% it will born alive, but there's a possibility 1% it might not born alive. So it might get abortioned, or maybe it get cleared away. So in these circumstances, we need to say that the condition is this fetus will get all these and is entitled to all these rights only when it is born alive. Okay, this is what we call incomplete receptive capacity. Then you have complete receptive capacity. Remember the word receptive, it's not active, which means that it's receptive. It refers to a capacity through which a person receives rights and obligations. The difference between a incomplete and complete, remember, in the incomplete, it will receive only rights, but it won't receive the obligation. See, not obligation. Not obligation is the key to understand incomplete receptive capacity. All right. When you understand complete receptive capacity, look here, which a person receives rights and obligations. Okay, rights and obligation. A person acquires this capacity after his birth, and until I mean, everybody after getting birth will come under this complete receptive capacity. The example of this is children with guardians. They receive rights and obligations as the guardians are acting on their behalf. They can enter into the contracts of sale or gift through their guardians. Through their guardians. They are also under obligations to pay zakat, zakat fitr, on his property. This is what I called obligation. You know, receiving rights means you receive only the inheritance. Obligations mean you have to pay certain taxes. So now, let's say, as I told you, the father passed away. So the newborn baby will inherit the property. But the newborn baby cannot manage or handle the property. So the guardian, let's say the mother, or maybe the father's brother, maybe the uncle, will become the guardian of the baby, right? So that's what happened. When you remember, when Prophet ﷺ was born, before his birth, his father Abdullah already passed away. So when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was born, he was born as orphan. So the uncle of the Prophet, who is actually brother to Abdullah, who is also father of Ali, his name is Abu Talib. He became the guardian. I mean, first of all, uh, the 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 grandfather Abdul Muttalib was the guardian. The grandfather was the guardian of the Prophet ﷺ. Then later, after the grandfather, the uncle Abu Talib was the guardian of the Prophet ﷺ. So similarly, so here, if someone's father passed away, so the baby will born, and then the baby will get the inheritance, the property, but the guardian will manage the property. The guardian also has to pay zakat or zakat al-fitr on his property. This is what the majority scholars are saying. The baby has to pay zakat and zakat al-fitr. But according to Hanafi, this is the different way. According to Hanafi, considers zakat as a form of worship, and they argue that a child is not obliged to pay zakat, and as he is not obliged to pray, since he is not attained the age of major. All of you, as you know, that we have to start praying the salat. We have to start doing the fasting, the shiyam, only after certain age, only after we attained the age of major, what we call it baligh, right? It could be 15, 16, 17, or 14. So these are the baligh, what we call it. So this age only everyone has to do the obligation. So according to Hanafi, when they think about this, they said child is not obliged to pay zakat. Similarly, the child is not obliged to pray, or the child is not obliged to do fasting. The obligations a child receives does not include criminal liabilities, as he cannot be punished for crimes he commits. This is different. What we call it juvenile. Today we call it, the child. When the child commits something, it's not actually a crime like adult is committing, because most of the time, all the time, is actually child is committing because they don't know that they are committing the crime. So here the obligations a child receives does not include criminal liabilities. They don't include any criminal liabilities. Obligations here is actually something what we call is actually, it's to pay the taxes, to handle the property, to pay zakat. These are the things what we call obligations. Yeah. So this is the example and also the definition of complete receptive capacity. A child who has obtained a complete capacity to receive rights and obligations still cannot undertake contractual obligations except through his guardian. And if he does the aqad, the contract is void. Void means cancel. He is not also obliged to pray, fast, or go to Hajj. So this is the point again, the same point. Any child who is actually complete capacity, right, obtain can to receive rights obligations, still cannot undertake on. It doesn't mean that he can actually undertake the contractual obligation. For example, he is a very small child, 1 year old, then he is actually aging, slowly growing, 2 years, 3 years, suddenly become 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. So the child is actually becoming, for example, Sabi al-Mumayyiz, for example, distinguished child. Maybe the child is able to see what is right, what is wrong, able to understand what is money, what is not. Still, the baby cannot do the contractual obligations except through his guardian, right? Okay. Now we are going to talk about number two. Number two, like I told you earlier, ahliya al-ada. Okay, this ahliya al-ada means it comes from here. Ahliya, you have receptive, passive capacity. So we finished two examples. Incomplete, example of incomplete is fetus. Example of complete is a newborn baby, the child. Now we are going to talk about this part. Okay, active capacity, ahliya al-ada. Okay, this is the second one. Active legal capacity, it refers to the ability of a person to manage his wealth and exercise his rights and undertake obligations in a manner recognized by the Sharia. The principal elements for the capacity of performance ahliya al-ada is number one, the puberty, and number two, the intellectual standard that a person has attained. This enables him to distinguish between useful and harmful, profitable and lost, unprofitable, or transaction. So the intellectual standard will make him to reach this capacity, what we call active legal capacity. As I told you again, they also have two types of ahliya al-ada, incomplete and then complete. The example for incomplete is actually Sabi al-Mumayyiz. So what exactly incomplete active capacity? A child between the age of 8 and the age of puberty. Age of puberty is 15 according to major. Okay, from 8 until it become major. So this is what we call actually the age that he can actually understand what is right, what is wrong. He has incomplete capacity to attain rights and responsibility, rights and obligation. A child in this age group is called Sabi al-Mumayyiz, or a child who could distinguish between good and bad, according to Shafi and Hanbali. So this is where actually there are discussion with regard to this particular Sabi al-Mumayyiz, what kind of transaction he can do. If he can do by himself, or he has to do through the guardian. So what kind of aqad that he can do, this is what we are going to talk about in this discussion. According to Shafi and Hanbali, a distinguishing child does not have the requisite capacity, and therefore he cannot enter into any contract with or without the permission of his guardian. His guardian instead may conclude contracts on his behalf. Okay? Carefully understand the statement. According to Shafi and Hanbali, they consider him the distinguished child, the Shabi al-Mumayyiz. They consider him exactly like the last one. What was the last one? The last one was complete receptive capacity. And the example for the last one, for what was the example? The newborn child, or the 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old. So according to Shafi and Hanbali, they consider that this child is similar to what we discussed earlier, the newborn child. So he cannot enter into any contract with or without permission. Only guardians will do. Only guardians will do the transaction on their behalf. This Sabi al-Mumayyiz, even though he understands what is right and what is wrong, he cannot go and buy something. He cannot go and sell something. You cannot make him stand in the Pasar Malam to sell the kue, the one mama what mama, the one what mom produced. And the child cannot sell those snacks to someone, according to Shafi and Hanbali. But according to Hanafi and Maliki, there are three types of contract. Number one, beneficial aqad. Beneficial aqad means it's a valid beneficial transaction, means something that you do, but there is no way that actually there is no way that you will get lost. That kind of contract, what could be? There is only one contract where there is no loss at all, which is actually receiving the gift, receiving the will, or receiving the inheritance. So these are the thing what we call beneficial transaction, which means that they come to your birthday and then they give you the gift, the presents. Yeah. So you don't need your guardian's permission when you are receiving your gift. But this is for Shabi al-Mumayyiz. But if the baby is like, for example, 2 years old, 3 years old, 5 years old, before what we call it, the year was mentioned here, age of 8, right? So before the age of 8, 6 or 5, if someone gives you the gift, your your guardian or your mother, someone has to approve it. Right, and this is what we also see. If someone gives anything, always the baby looks up and then see the mother, should I take this or not? Right? Because sometimes you get something from the stranger, you cannot take it until your guardian approves this. So when it comes to Sabi al-Mumayyiz, because he knows what is right, what is wrong, according to Hanafi and Maliki, is okay. He actually can take those gift without guardian's permission. Okay. Number 2, aqad that causes loss. Something that you do, you always lose. For example, you give the gift to somebody, you give the presents to someone. It's like that. From your property, you are giving some product or some gift to somebody. This is what causes him the loss. Even though he's Sabi al-Mumayyiz, he wants to give something, it will cause him the loss. Aqad, the transaction that causes loss to him, even with his guardian's permission, is void. Cannot give gifts, or cannot become a guarantor for another person's debt. Sabi al-Mumayyiz cannot come and say that, okay, that man has to pay 1,000 ringgit, so I will pay on his behalf. He cannot say that. He cannot do that, because this kind of thing will cause him the loss. Sharia wants to protect the interest. Once he become the baligh, once he became the major, it is up to him. He can do whatever he is. But right now, he's not the major. That's why aqad that causes loss to him cannot do. Number 3, aqad that may cause either benefit or loss. This is what we call sale. Either loss, because when you are doing sale, the characteristic of sale, the characteristic of trade is actually sometimes you might get lost, sometimes you might get profit. So the profit and loss, what we call PLS, profit loss sharing, it always there in the trade. So that kind of transactions, aqad that may cause either benefit or loss, Example, sale, hire, partnership is valid. It is valid with the approval of the guardian, which means that you get the approval of the guardian and then you actually can do business. For this is the way, this is where actually you can actually with your mother's permission, with your uncle's permission, you actually can sell product in pasar malam. So now you understand. But according to Shafi and Hanbali, even selling things in pasar malam, this Sabi al-Mumayyiz cannot sell. See, they mention with or without the permission of his guardian. That's because according to Shafi and Hanbali, they consider Sabi al-Mumayyiz as a newborn baby. But according to Hanafi and Maliki, yes, if you want to do some business from your money, right? For sometimes our Sabi al-Mumayyiz, they used to have money, like for example, they have the piggy bank, what they call it. I don't know why they call it piggy. All right, sometimes they have money, they have storage, they have their own what they call it, they have their own pocket money, they keep it and they want to do business. Okay, all you need to do, get permission from your mother, from your father, from your uncle, then you can actually do business with your own. This is what according to Hanafi and Maliki, and this one comes under incomplete active capacity. So let me finish this and then you can ask your questions. Then B, and then you have complete active capacity. This is actually, there is no doubt about this, because this is the last one. The fourth stage is actually you and me, all of us. Complete capacity to acquire right and responsibilities. He can enter to any aqad without the need to get anyone's approval. You don't need anybody's approval because you are baligh, major. The principle of elements for the complete active capacity are the puberty and the intellectual standard that a person has attained. This enables him to distinguish between useful and harmful, profitable and unprofitable things or transactions, right? The science of the puberty is puberty prudence is hidden phenomena. The scholar therefore rely on the age as determining factor which could establish them. According to Hanafi, the age of major is 18 for males and 17 for females. Other scholars, it is 15 for both male and female. Every person who has reached the age of major may enter into contracts of sale and purchase, rent, wakala, partnership. So again, this age, it goes to region. It might be changing in some part of the world. It could be 18. In some part of the world, it could be 17 or 16. It is up to the region that the government also decide on what age you become major. All right. Okay. So yes, what was the question, Leon?
Yes, sir. Sir, actually, I want to ask is, so regarding the Alia Arada, we have the complete and incomplete, right?
Yeah.
So, the common example for the incomplete, we can say that it's a newborn child.
You are
And
talking about Ada, or
Ada,
I mean, you are talking about the receptive capacity, or are you talking about the active capacity?
active.
Okay, the active legal capacity, the incomplete example is not newborn child.
So actually for the incomplete, what's the example like provided by sir just now?
Okay, here in the right now you see in the screen. What do you see? It is the child. It is called distinguished child. A child between the age of 8 and the age of puberty. Until
Also, it is already not a newborn child, right?
this is not newborn child. This is not. Newborn child will come under receptive capacity, not active capacity.
Okay. So and also the example for the complete is like us lah, all the people, right?
But yes, all of us, yeah, major.
So sir, can I say that the incomplete one is like the teenager? Or cannot?
Teenager depends. You see, because when it comes to 13, you start. saying teenager. Again, this teenage start from 13, 14, 15. Then you have again 16, 17, 18. So I cannot just specifically say teenagers. So teenagers will come in both. Some teenagers are already major. You agree or not? Some teenagers, they are not major.
Yes.
Because, for example, 13, are they major?
Need to depend the situation, sir.
13 are major, right? Are you sure 13 is major?
No, no, no.
So if 18, they are major, right?
Yes.
So they are different. That's why I didn't bring teenage here. I just say here I give you this name Shabi al-Mumayyiz, or you can call them distinguished child, which means that the child in the age of 8, from the age of 8 until the age of puberty, until the age he become major.
So can I say that according to the Shafis and the Hanbalis, if I'm not mistaken, can I say that whatever the child still cannot buy or sell something, although they try to get the permission from their guardians.
No, what I mean, you see, they cannot directly deal. They cannot directly. I mean, they cannot directly handle the trade with or without the permission of his guardian. This is similar to what we talked about earlier. The child also cannot trade himself. This is what according to Shafi and Hanbali. But of course, if he wants something, definitely he needs something, definitely guardian will get to it. You want something, that's why that is the job of the guardian. The job of the guardian is to fulfill the need of that particular child, right?
Also, whether the child get or did not get the permission, the guardian still will instead and do the decision for them.
Yeah, still the guardian will make the decision. The guardian will make the decision according to Shafi and Hanbali until the baby becomes major. The guardian will make the decision, of course. But here we are talking about whether this particular Shabi al-Mumayyiz, the distinguished child, can himself or herself can himself or herself deal in the trade. Can he do trading? This is the question. It's not about buying something for him. It's not about buying something, buying some chocolate. It's not buying some makanan, eateries. Here we are talking about trading. Can he involve in trading or not? So according to Shafi and Hanbali, he cannot involve in trading because he is not major. Yeah. But according to Hanafi Maliki, there are 3 contracts. You look at the 3 contracts. The last one, for example, sale and hire and partnership, he actually can do the trading, but he needs approval from the guardian. The guardian has to say, okay, you can do this business. But he can do by himself. But the guardian will give the permission.
Understood. Although he's still not major, right, sir?
He's still not major, yes. He's still not major. For example, that's why if a child, if someone like 10 years old, if he wants to sell something in the market, he can do so, but the approval must be given by the guardian.
Okay, so my last question is regarding the receptive one. So regarding the receptive one, can I say that the example for the complete is like the newborn child, and also the incomplete is like the fetus?
Yes, correct.
So under under the fetus, can I say that normally for fetus is because he's still not a child. He is in the mother body.
Yes.
So he or she totally cannot do anything, right? He or she only has the right to receive
Yes.
what he or she will get.
Yes. For example, inheritance. Yeah. The inheritance. The fetus will get inheritance, will get the property, but of course, definitely, there is no obligation on the fetus. The obligations means, what I mean by that is actually like paying the taxes, paying the zakat, the maintenance. But of course, eventually it happens. I'm just saying the rule. But eventually, after the baby was born, then when the baby was born, it becomes to the other category of complete receptive capacity, right? Maybe it was incomplete, but now after the birth, it become complete, from incomplete to complete. So when it becomes complete, then it will receive both. It will receive the rights, and also it will receive the obligation. That's why we discussed earlier that they are also under obligation to pay zakat al-fitr. This is what the majority scholars say, but according to Hanafi, it is not. Okay.
So normally the age is between like actually say like newborn child. So after the child is born like only 1 year old or 2 year old,
Yeah.
he or she need to pay the zakat or whatever he need to pay lah under he or she obligation. But the guardians will help him or her.
Exactly.
Am I right,
Okay.
sir?
Exactly. Okay, I'll give you the real-time example. Okay, the example for, let's say there is a father by the name of Khalid, and then he was a businessman. He is running a big industry business, and he used to pay zakat every year. And then the wife, she was actually conceived. She was having baby. While she was having baby in her tummy, of course, the womb, Khalid passed away. Maybe there was an accident. All right. So now she became the single mother, but she's also getting some help from the father's side. Maybe the grandfather is helping the business, or maybe the uncle is helping the business. But the only sole property owner is actually the womb, the baby. The baby is right now in the womb. Right. So now eventually the baby will come out, and then the baby will become the property owner, business owner, the commercial industry owner. So now Khalid used to pay zakat for his business, but now Khalid is no more. He already passed away. So the baby right now is there. So now the baby is the owner of the entire business, but the baby cannot handle the business because it is baby. So the guardians will handle the business, and then the guardians also will pay zakat, because Khalid used to pay zakat for his business. So they will continue pay zakat from the business. So this is what we call here the baby on his property, on her property. It is still under obligation to pay zakat and zakat fitr, some other taxes as well. Is it clear? Yes, sir. Fatima, you have question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Understand.
Okay. Yes, Fatima, do you have any questions? Your mic is on.
Sir, actually, I want to ask what is the age for the complete receptive capacity?
Okay, you're talking about complete receptive capacity. It starts from the birth. After his
Until
birth, So of course, it goes until, let's say, the next example goes to this one, right? Incomplete. So at the age of 8. So before 8. So you can keep it in. That's why, to make it simple, to make it easy to remember, I give you 4 stages of life. The first one is fetus, right? The second one is actually a newborn baby. The third one is from age of 8. The fourth one is actually the one who already attained major. So if you look in these 4 stages, then you will understand incomplete and then complete. Again incomplete and then complete. So you have ahliya al-wujub, the receptive capacity, incomplete and then complete. Then you have ahliya al-ada, which is the active capacity. You have incomplete and then complete. Clear?
Oh, it is very clear. Thank you, sir.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so next one is we need to talk about the obstacles to capacity. So this is the continuation of what we discussed earlier. You see, in the last part we discussed that the principal elements for the complete active capacity is actually the puberty and the intellectual standard. What if there is a problem in this? Whether it is in the puberty or maybe it is in the problem in the intellectual standard. When someone is having, he is actually complete active capacity. But when he is having some problems, then even though he is major, he cannot deal with trading. This is also Sharia wants to protect his interest. That's why we are talking about obstacles to capacity. There are some factors that may prevent a person from dealing with his own property. These factors disqualify a person from concluding a contract. It could be beyond his power, within his power. Obstacles to capacity refer to a situation where a person is restrained. Okay, this is a situation where a person is restrained from dealing with his property. The first one is insanity, right? When someone becomes junun, insanity, or lunatic, where a person's mental capability is affected, even though he is major, right? He is 20, 30 years old, but if his mental capability is affected, consequently, this affects his ability to make a rational decision. All contracts performed by an insane person are invalid, which means that I also cannot go and make valid with him. I cannot make any trade with him. I'm not allowed to do that. The Sharia wants to protect him because he is the insane. He can sell a product of 5,000 for 50 ringgit. There is a possibility. And I cannot say that Alhamdulillah, I'm very happy today, I'm very lucky, I got this. No, you got the haram product. You got somebody's product, which is injustice. That's why if someone is insane, you cannot do transaction with him. Or a transaction made by a person who is not continuously insane in his state of sanity is considered valid. This is something different. Sometimes people are crazy all the time, but sometimes people are not crazy all the time. They are crazy sometimes. Sometimes they are good. So if they are not continuously insane, maybe at the time that you are buying from him, he is okay, fine, then it's considered valid. Number 2, idiocy. The similar thing, like the previously insanity, and this is idiocy, something different, but it's a different name. Where a person is inconsistent in his decisions and behaviors, which may change from time to time. His status is status of child, who could distinguish between good and bad. He may perform contracts which are in his interest without seeking permission from his guardian. He could not enter into contracts that are harmful. He may enter into contracts that fall between these two extremes with the permission of his guardian. So this is what we discussed earlier with Shabi al-Mumayyiz. He will become like them. Whatever the harmful one, he cannot enter. But if he is he is something with between profit and loss, like for example selling something, he can do with the permission of his guardian. Again, this idiocy also need guardian. Without guardian cannot do, because this is all actually sometimes these consequences might happen. Still Sharia wants to protect their interest. Again, similarly, you can go sleeping. Person minds becomes in its lowest level of activity. He is not conscious of what is occurring around him. The contract performed by a sleeping person is not valid. You might go, for example, 4 in the morning, you go to any shop that they open for 24 hours. 4 in the morning, you see the cashier is sleepy or he is not conscious. Better you don't do any deal with him, because he might be giving you the wrong product, or maybe he might giving you take you the wrong money, or maybe you pay him extra and he pay you, or he took less. So anything can happen. That's why it is better if he is sleepy, better you don't do business with him. Also, this is what, because the next one is unconscious. This unconscious is a disease of a mind or heart which may weaken or suspend a person's power to think. Such a state could be compared with sleeping. This unconsciousness means sometimes you have a medicine, and then it made you unconscious. It happens when people in hospitals, when they use this kind of anesthetic medicines and all. Such a state could be compared with sleeping. Sleeping, however, is a natural state, but unconsciousness is not. A contract made by such a person is not valid. All right. So I think I stop here. From this intoxication, inshallah, I will continue in the next class.